And as usual, I always have interesting people coming down to talk to us here on Africa Speaks and bring in the information that is very, very well required as far as the continent is concerned. Now, Ghana goes to the elections in 2020, which is less than a year's time, and there's a lot that we really want to know about Ghana and what it really means as far as the African continent is because Nigeria just had its elections recently, and of course I won't go into that. You're all aware of what happened. Now, the former Gold Coast has a lot. We have a lot to learn from, and we can't learn that lot if we don't speak to the people who come from that country. There's a lot that Dr. Osagyefo Kwame Nkuruma left behind, and the policies and the things that he wanted to achieve. But the question has always been coming in: is the old man's vision of Africa fading away? Is Africa walking away from the vision of the great man? This has been, scholars around here in London and other parts of the world has been going through this, and why we're not revisiting that vision. So my guest today is an activist, one of probably the best I've ever met as far as the political activism is concerned. His name is Nyeya. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you've been around. You've been up and down with Rawlings and the others, and as far as the continent is concerned, and as far as Ghana is concerned, that the question has always been niggling behind of Nkuruma's legacy and what he had when he was alive and president of Ghana. A few people believed him. Others believed his vision was a good one for the continent. The question is, this is the 21st century. Is that vision still existing? Do people still believe in it? Can Africa follow that vision?
Yeah. Nkuruma's vision was a vision for Africa, for the future. Nkuruma's vision was a vision that moved away from classical colonialism to independent Africa or independent African countries. And what happened is that during the period of Nkuruma, from 1951 until he was overthrown on 24 February 1966, Nkuruma tried as much as possible to implement his policies. His first idea was that seek you first the political independence, and all other things will be added. Nkuruma realized at the time of self-government, and we must always remember that Nkuruma came into power in 1951, and it was not until 1957 that Ghana became independent. And Nkuruma had a clear vision of disengaging us from not only colonial rule, but economic independence. So that was Nkuruma's vision. So when Nkuruma came into power, and immediately after independence, up to the Republic in 1960, Nkuruma implemented policies that would make us self-reliant. And that was why there was an expansion in what is called the import-export substitution industries. The Tema township was built. A lot of factories, and in the areas that I come from, that's in the Upper East region in Bolgatanga, we even had the meat factories, the tomatoes factory, and we had rice mills. In Kumasi and others, there were other factories, Obosi Glass Company, the Shoe Factory, and others. So
the question is, why did that vision, when he brought it up, and it was an upcoming vision, which is a very good one in terms of economical independence, in terms of political independence, and so on and so forth. Somewhere along the way, was there something he did wrong for this for even a coup to come along? There must have been something.
Yeah, nobody is perfect, and I'm not here to say that Nkuruma, there were no mistakes during the CPP rule. There were definite mistakes, but they were the mistakes that should have led into the coup of 24 February.
Yeah.
But the problem that happened was that Nkuruma stepped on the toes of so many people.
Okay.
First of all, Nkuruma took away power from the educated elites in Ghana who think that they possess power. Power should be in their hands.
Yeah.
And therefore, they never forgave Nkuruma. And then, ironically, they did not believe in Nkuruma's policies. They didn't believe in how he organized the mass of the people against them. In fact, they called Nkuruma's followers the veranda boys. So they weren't happy about that.
Okay.
So internally, there were people who were very, very dissatisfied. And they did not only express the dissatisfied by, even though Nkuruma defeated them at elections upon elections upon elections, you know, they decided, the National Liberation Movement decided that they wanted a federal form of government. And even in Asante, between 1956, almost up to before independence, you know, getting to independence, there was almost like a civil war going on there. You know, so there were all those factors. And then also the feudal interest in Ghana and the privileged interest in Ghana were against Nkuruma's policies that opened the country to ordinary people. Apart from that, you had the Western interest.
I was going to mention
which was the major problem, you see, because Nkuruma started saying that we deserve to control our minerals with all those factors, you know. So, and then thirdly, there was also the issue of Pan Africanism. You know, Nkuruma mobilizing people across. So there were internal forces and there were the external forces. Imperialism was very, very unhappy, you know, because people, the white people didn't colonize us because they loved us or they wanted to give us the Bible.
They wanted what they could get.
They wanted what they could get. And Nkuruma was a threat, not only in Ghana, but across Africa.
The whole continent.
And that is why it is established, and you can read it, you can go and Google that the British intelligence and the CIA organized the coup in collaboration with internal reactionary forces. And that is why Nkuruma was overthrown. So there were, of course, there were mistakes, you know, because Nkuruma had just come into power. You know, the ideological, even though he set up the Kwame Nkuruma Ideological Institute and all others, but the forces there, so there is nobody that is, there were problems here and there, but the problems did not, Nkuruma had a lot of, fought them, corruption and others. They were down broadcasts that he condemned corruption within the party.
The thing is, one thing which I read about somebody who was at the time, in fact, one of the ex-ministers of Nkuruma, I can't remember the name, but he did mention that one of the biggest problems that he did was that he never sold that vision to the elected, to the educated elite in Ghana. He sold his vision to those people on the ground, to those people who are maybe street cleaners, nurses. But he failed to sell his vision to the elite, who are the educated establishment, who looked at Ghana more like a Britain. You know, those who are educated in London, who are educated in America. The vision wasn't really something that they believed. He never sold that vision to them because it could only be to somebody who is struggling. Because when you look at that vision, almost like the same vision that Fidel Castro had. Let's share everything. It's a kind of African or a kind of not Pan Africanism. What is it called? Socialism. Some kind of socialism, which says, look, we all have to be equal in certain ways. But the people who are at the top could see their positions being undermined, and they were worried about their positions, so they undermined him instead. Yeah, because
he couldn't have, even if he sold it, he couldn't have sold his vision. They wouldn't have bought the vision because it was an issue, or is still in Ghana today, an issue of class. Class interest. It's an issue of privilege versus underprivileged.
Okay.
Luckily for us, unlike other African countries, Nkuruma went with the underprivileged.
Yeah.
You see, and they saw Nkrumah's policies as affecting them, their interests, and that is why they fell a prey. And even the leader of the coup, Afrifa, said that he felt more comfortable being with his friends in Sandhurst than going to Congo to fight.
Yeah.
You get what I'm trying to say?
It
is an ideological struggle. It's interest, and that is exactly the problem that we are having in modern today's Africa. It is the interest of the privileged, the interest of the people who are ruling, what they can gain from power, as against ordinary people. And that is the cause of the poverty we have in Africa, and that was the cause of the coup.
Okay, is that the thing that is failing the Pan-Africanism? Because if it's part of that sort of elitism, and we looking at the elite, those who have made it already, and saying, look, we need, every now and then I sit with them and I hear them saying, look, we need Pan-African movement, the diplomats, so we need the Pan-African movement, but it's only in words.
It's rhetoric.
It's not in deed. So it's only in words, which comes then down to the fact that although they bought into the vision of the great man, implementing the vision is not part of their nature. They don't want to do it, because Pan-Africanism is meant to, by now, with what is happening, we could be miles away if we follow the path he took, and Pan-Africanism throughout the whole continent with the kind of unity that he had preached. But what is failing it? Is it the education elite, the educated elite looking in the other direction? Is it a question of money? Is it, what is failing Pan-Africanism?
I mean, what is failing Pan-Africanism, as you've rightly said, is that you have a group of people whose interest is in various African countries, whose interests are at variance with the mass majority of the people. You have a group of people, our leaders, whether in Uganda, in Ghana, and others, whose interest is with imperialism, and they gain from it. It's not like they don't know. If you listen to our president, when he met Macron speak, you can see they even realize that they realize that our country is dominated, but either they are lazy or the energy, or because of the ideological interest, they are not interested in fighting for the greater Africa or Pan-Africanism. And also remember that imperialism, for Africa to become free. You remember that in 1984, was it in 1884, when they put map down at Berlin Conference and carved Africa, that is, it hasn't changed. And that Britain, America, and all those countries have interest. You know about Congo, you know about the copper mine, and all the Zambia and others. The interest that imperialism have. Even if you look at we are in Britain here. If you look at Britain here, you look at America, the privilege, the 1% that controls the society. So if you juxtapose that in Africa, and Africa is a resource-rich country, and you only have to, I read this book by a Financial Times editor called The Looting Machine, and then you have to read that book, about Angola, and he calls names about how the educated elites sell the continent down. And also because you ask, why are they doing that? They are doing it because they benefit.
From it, But
they benefit. You go to Accra.
They've gone they've earned too much money.
They earn too much. And they don't even, like I was just reading some WhatsApp today, a Nigerian person was saying that he doesn't understand how long do you have to live, 70 years and you are dead. But you see, the psychic of the privilege is not in the interest of let's share, let's make sure that we have an equitable society. So, and that is why, because they don't think that their perception is like the perception of the privileged classes in the Americans, the British, and all others. I wouldn't like to use the word conspire, but ideologically, their ideas are the same. Unfortunately for us, the educational system that we inherited, from colonialism, having had a marked change, is the same educational system.
And ideally, they have changed theirs, by the way. Theirs have changed. They have to change theirs.
So we have the same educational system that looks out, you finish school and you get a job and you do this. So now, what happens? Ghana will produce over 200,000 university graduates and polytechnic students every year. And the employment market can't get more than 20,000. So what happens to over 180,000? You know, and these are the factors that brings about nepotism, corruption, and others. You see, the fundamental issue that faces Africa and faces Pan-Africanism, it is the control of our human and natural resources. As far as our human and natural resources are there for the taking, you know, nothing, we wouldn't have development. For example, in Ghana, we have gold. We have manganese, we have diamond, and we have others.
Everything.
And you will be shocked that
you even have oil now.
You'll be shocked that we don't get more than between 5 to 7% of what is dug out of gold. Most of it goes outside. They'll tell you that they employ people. So you employ people after you dig out with the environmental disaster and you take everything out. And remember, our minerals are final. They are not infinite. They are not there forever. You know, so Africans should have done that. Look at like Ghana again. We're talking about our oil. We only take 13%. Any country worth its source, you know, like Ghana, if we got oil, you tell them, let's have 51%. You have the technology. You have 49%. So at least there is enough resources, even to support the educated elite, to let them live even their lavish lifestyles, and also some coming to the ordinary people. But because of the ideological inclination of the educated elite, they don't think, they are not thinking broadly about how we can support our people.
Now the question is, one of the ideas that speaking to Nkuruma's daughter, I had a privilege of interviewing her on radio a couple of years ago, and one of the reasons she says, look, her father had wanted to introduce Pan-Africanism in schools because he had been to the OAU and other conferences, and was telling the Africans that in order for this whole Pan-Africanism to succeed, we need to go to schools who educate the students at an early stage to sort of get their minds gripped on the continent. And the process was made to be introduced in schools in Ghana, and then it can be throughout all Africa. But it was being rejected by even the Minister of Education, saying, look, let's Pan-Africanism, let's look more to what it's going to do. It can be done in a different way, but they didn't really accept it as such. Now, here we are, fast forward, the 21st century. You're a Pan-Africanist. Do you see this thing as working in schools? If, say, for example, you go out to lecture and say, look, every person or every student somewhere has to be taught Pan-Africanism, and Pan-Africanism has to be some kind of a subject in schools. Do you think this thing would work?
Yeah, why not? But again, it depends upon whether our leaders will accept them. Will accept that, and also it depends upon the content. You know, like when I was in the University of Ghana, everybody had to do something called African Studies. We used to call it Afro Stars. If you failed African Studies, you wouldn't go to year 2. You know, but the content, even though it was talked about Africa, but at least it did provide some kind of light at the end of the tunnel. You know, that is if our leaders
accept it,
will accept it, you know, and introduce it. But whether they will accept it is another matter, you know, and it also depends, not only accepting it, but the content of the Pan-Africanism should be such that it should look to the African person, you know, as a human being. You know, if that is done, then the society is on will move along, but that will require a group of people. That will require political parties, you know, coming out with very clear political progress. Like
it will probably also require some kind of militarism, some kind of demonstration, some kind of signature signing, some kind of. I think this is a thing.
Yeah, it requires that. But signature signing, demonstrations, and others will not bring about a change. What will bring about a change is that the various African countries should begin the process of mobilizing the youth. It is very difficult. We're trying to do it in Ghana. It's not that easy. We have to have an alternative political parties to the existing parties that are. Our major problem is that in Africa, almost all parts of Africa are implementing the neoliberal type of economic policies that we have. Austerity, you know, they sell out, like in Ghana now, they've sold out our electricity out. Most of them are sell out.
Electricity
a lot of things. So the issue is people to say that no, we need a different alternative. We need a political party. We need to educate the people and get together. You know, people are right, people are conscious, and people, if you listen to radio and others, people are waking up. But whether these ideas are being formulated to have alternative to the existing, like the existing two-party system in Ghana, the existing two-party system in Nigeria, whether that can happen is what progressive people should work towards.
Yeah, but the key question has always been, they're going to work towards, everybody, when he enters through the system, he looks at the policy, and everybody thinks that his policy is the best. But obviously, the opposition have a different way of thinking. And the question is always going to be, ours is the best. Now, you can't measure whether yours is the best or not. But someone has to point the finger at you, and everything comes back to individualism. Because individualism, they win over others, whether they're wrong or right. There are those who simply say, whether I'm right or wrong, you're going to go with me. Now, that's where militarism comes in, and that is where people like you come in as Pan African, you know. The writing of articles, the instigation into people's knowledge about what to do, the inner workings of Pan-Africanism. How do we get to understand the inner workings? You've been involved with Pan-Africanism. You've talked to people who are so keen and, you know, have that thing in mind. Like that Eritrean fellow we mentioned. Buhari, and ex-pro Nani Kofi. You know, these people have met them across, and their ideas are so good. But I still go back to the system. How do we put these ideas into everybody's head?
But again, it's us. It's about the Pan-Africanists being sincere. Because I remember I've been in this country for over 30 years. And when we came into this country, that was the time of the struggle for independence against the apartheid regime in South Africa. You see, and I remember that there was, I don't know whether you ever heard about somebody called Babu. Babu, Zimbabwean, you know, he was not Zimbabwean, Zanzibar, from Nyerere's district. There was a mass of us around. You know, we even did have a magazine called African World Review.
Oh, right, remember that.
You remember the African World?
I've seen a copy of it.
Yes, African World.
It's no longer existing.
It doesn't exist. We operated it for a number of years. You know, and then we were creating links when we were in the UK here. Maybe because of that time, the Ghanaians had links with the South Africans, and then with the Caribbeans, and then we even had, and then John LaRose, I don't know how you remember him, New Beacon Books. You know, used to organize this every 2 years, book fair, and Africans used to come. You know, and then, but unfortunately what happened is that the African leaders got hijacked. And in your country, Museveni hijacked
we have an office in Kampala.
They hijacked the Otafiri, they hijacked.
There's another Ugandan minister.
They hijacked the movement and killed it.
Well, I wouldn't say they've killed it. It's existing in Kampala, and I wouldn't say name. I wouldn't say name. It's existing, and I've visited their offices at one time when I was looking for when I was writing an article based on Pan-Africanism, and it was a celebration of I think Nkuruma Day or something. We have something like that in Uganda, and I visited their offices because Museveni is practically paying for the offices. The NRM government is paying for the offices in Uganda because Museveni was a Pan-Africanist, and in fact he fought in Mozambique with the former Mozambique president, and in Tanzania Nyerere supported it so much. In Arusha they even have, I think, They have something in Arusha as well. So it's existing. But,
that is why we have to build on that. In the African countries, Pan-Africanism now, after 30, 50 years of independence, have to move, and hopefully it's in Uganda, the offices are in Ghana. But what should happen is that the various mass movements that are emerging in Africa, the various mass movements should have within their political programs the content of Pan-Africanism. It shouldn't be that we Ghanaians and Ghanaians for it, we Nigerians and Nigerians for it, we Tanzanians and Tanzanians for it. We should have that content. There should be a return to Nkuruma.
One thing I've seen, which I believe is one of the biggest problems, is the question of money. The movement itself needs to be funded. And the funding of it is such that this is where we go back to the schools again. The division of Nkuruma, the books written by Nkuruma, and not only Nkuruma, but other Pan-Africanists who existed during the 60s and who actually lectured and gave away quite a lot. Those things all need to be encouraged. But what comes in is it doesn't have a source of where its money comes from. Now, one person like Museveni may donate a certain amount of money. Then maybe in Angola, maybe they get the money, a little bit of money, but the money that they get is simply to run their offices. So they don't have a bulk, let's say 2, 4, 5 million or something like that is existing somewhere to carry out various projects. Especially the key thing to me is education. Now, with the lack of that, the chances are they are limited to what they can do in terms of fostering things to go through. That's my belief.
It's not even because, first of all, Pan-Africanism is a progressive move. And what is happening in Africa now is the decadence of the political systems in Ghana, Nigeria, and all these African countries have made it almost impossible to have the necessary resources. I'm in Ghana, I work in Bolga, and we try as much as possible. We are Pan-Africanists, and then we're working at the grassroots. To get resources is very difficult because the political parties that have taken that control, and in Ghana we have 2 main political parties. They are more like investment bank. They are more like investment bank. You see, so they have the money. Through other corrupt means and others. We have the MPP and the NDC, the New Patriotic Party and the National Democratic Congress. That alternates party between them. And what they have inexhaustible supply of money. You see, and their activities, the investors in those political parties, pull the crowd. So when we, the Pan-Africanists, organize an activity,
try to come around,
and because the way in which the neoliberal policies, has been implemented, has whipped the people to such an extent that the mass of people, a lot of people are looking out to where they can go, and get resources. I'm not saying there are no genuine people there who want a change and all others, but people are sitting down and then they are saying they want a change. But the resources are not there to mobilize the people, and people, even the political parties, even pay people to attend their functions,
their rallies, and
their rallies. They buzz them in and all others. So we have, Pan-Africanists have a heavy task ahead.
I know, without money.
And also not only the money, but it is also the commitment. As Pan-Africanists, what we should do is that, are we sincere? Are we people of integrity? Do we trust each other? Are we less ambitious? But sometimes you get the people who says that they are struggling for ordinary people, and you get them busy destroying themselves, and that affects the African struggle. So it is important that, despite the money is an issue, it is important that progressive forces come together and say that our common goal is to ensure that the human and natural resources that are in our country are used for the interest of the people. And what we want to do is that we want to organized in such a way that we have people who have integrity, we have people who care about the society, and they can come together and form an alternative to these moribund political parties that we have.
It's a very brilliant idea, but as it is, it's an idea. Now there is a Bishop Duncan Williams, Duncan Williams from Ghana, who has come up with a very good solution. And that solution is, even I speak to you right now, is being discussed in East Africa and other parts of East and Central Africa, in a sense that people are looking at politics as a division. Political parties have divided the continent. We are not mature enough in Africa, the way these people have matured over the years, the West, to know that the national interest comes first. Now, they went through this 200 years ago. The British, the Americans.
Are they even matured? Remember we were just talking about British exit?
Yeah, but at least when they're discussing it, it's in-house. Yeah. They're not killing each other. They're not doing what, but they're discussing it. And they have, in the end, you'll see, they will have a dialogue. Because you can't have a win-win situation. When you stand out there and you're fighting each other and you're fighting, somebody has to fall apart, or someone has to win, or else you're killing each other, both of you. So the thing that he's talking about, and he's trying to say that let's have 25 years of no political parties, and I think I'll let our viewers listen to what he say if they haven't. It's been there on the internet and it's everywhere. I'll let our viewers listen to it and then make their own judgment.
It's the way our party politics is structured. This winner takes it all has to stop. This thing when I come into office and then I'm coming after you and coming after your people to call them to accountability.
So you're saying that let's stop party politics. Let's have a coalition of people who are thinking about the country. Let's implement a 25-year plan on health, on education. So we take a decision on education.
That's it.
So it's not somebody comes 3 years, SS, somebody says 4 years. No. Let's take a decision. Do we need the SSS? Do we need the old system? Which one benefits our people? On water, what do we do? On electricity, when we have established those things, we can go back to party politics. And we'll become like America.
We can. It's possible in our lifetime.
Are you giving up on what the church has done over the last 30 years? Because you see, with your leadership, Your Eminence, the church has had significant interventions in our national life.
I agree.
I remember the Ebola. You stood up and said a prayer against Ebola. Today we don't talk about it anymore. Glory to God. I remember the Oral Roberts conference. And you have been holding these conferences at the Accra Sports Stadium. You were praying for the nation when the rains came. So all of these interventions have been to hold the nation together. Do I get the sense that you are now giving up on that one and thinking that if our people don't take action, then we are gone?
I'm not giving up on prayer for nation.
And those spiritual interventions.
Yes, I'm worried.
So they, as we listen to him and what he says, the issue of having no political party for 25 years, where leadership can change hands in a sense that you have a leader coming on, appointed, not even elected, but appointed to rule from, he rules the country for 5 years. Then another leader is appointed. Now, all the leaders are working in a national interest. Everything is a national interest. So whoever is there, it's just like a civil servant or anyone else. He's given that job to work as a civil servant, and he works in a national interest rather than having a president who is elected. Now, the whole thing is properly explained. You've heard about it.
Yes.
Now, do you think it will work?
You see, with due respect to the Bishop, Bishop Duncan Williams, I mean, like he says, he's got a right to make his comments and others, and ideas should be discussed, and we see what we can do. But what the Bishop is forgetting is that it is not the problems in Africa. It's not just about the political parties. You see, the issues, the problems that we are having is the economy that we inherited from colonialism. You see, And also, secondly, it is the policies that are pursued by our leaders that has created the problems. You see, because if you look at Ghana, almost like I said, our resources, our oil and others, it's owned by foreign companies. This 5 years, 25 years or 5 years ruling, does that take into account that we have to renegotiate? So any policies like that, you know, should begin by looking at the national interest. Do we have a political, there must be a political program, that clearly says we must renegotiate. There must be a political program that must involve the mass of the people in governance, you know. But also, even that, you see, the problem that you are going to have with this kind of suggestion is that there are differences. There are differences. There's different class interests, and people represent different class interests. As Duncan Williams represent a class interest, and other people. The other people, of course, from the ruling class that do passionately care and will come on the, like Nkuruma did, come on the side of the working people and do policies, you know, in their favor. So it is not an issue of governance. The political parties, the reason why the political parties are fighting is to capture the state. Because when you capture the state, you control the state. What is left after the foreign companies have taken away, you control. So how are you going to resolve that? So a program like that should take into account how are we, you see, the various, because remember that the various groups, like in Ghana, we have the MPP and the NDC, but they're invariably the same group of people, the same elites that are divided, you know.
Whether one is in power or not.
It's the same group of people, a group of people with their friends, a group of people with their friends that are struggling to take control of the state, you know, for their own interest. So this kind of national government, we've had it. Achampo, we had somebody called Achampo, you know, who introduced something called, in fact, that is where we started our politics from, called Unigov. He came out with this idea about union government, a government of all the people. And unity, at that time, we were students in the university, and we campaigned against it. Because by the time even he came out with this union government concept, you see, the military had controlled it. It started as a progressive coup d'etat, coup. You know, they talked about capturing the commanding house, and it degenerated. And then they started implementing IMF policy. At the same time, they now come and say, let's have a union government of all of us. And it didn't work. And the student movement opposed it. So this idea that you can have parties are creating problems, you have to look about what is it? What is the political program? What is it that will benefit the people?
Well, the thing is if we have failed to train leaders of tomorrow to govern Africa in a national interest. This when I had one man from East Africa telling me that if we have failed to get one man in office and he's been there for 33 years, if we fail to get another one in office who's been there for 10, 15 years, then the chances are we can't get any of them out until maybe they live their lives out and die or something like that. But so he was suggesting, but when something like this comes around and people support it and say, well, I'm a CPP, I'm NDC, but the fact remains that we're both fighting for one thing, the betterness of Ghana.
Our country.
I will remain, I'll let someone else rule. And as long as whatever is taken is put back into the country. Because what worries most these people, Duncan Williams and the others, is that whatever's coming out of the national is being taken out. And it's being taken out because somebody's worried about where he's going to go next day, if he's overthrown or if everything happens. The word national interest won't exist in his brain then. You know?
I know. What worries people like Duncan Williams is that because in Ghana, we've had a situation in which the two political parties have what they call vigilante. In actual fact, they are militias. They are security forces outside the Ghanaian security forces. That pays allegiance to the two dominant parties. And they protect the politicians. They claim that they want to protect the ballot and others. And it became very, a couple of months ago, more serious during the Ayawase by-elections, where they came out in armed, and it created havoc in the country. And Ghanaians were worried and said, we can't have that. We have police. We have the security system. Why are we having these people? And so things like that might have prompted people like Duncan Williams to come out. You know, we don't need this because people are really scared. Even and that time I was in Ghana. I just came recently, and then people were talking about, you know, people are afraid because when this militia or what they call vigilante came out, Ghanaians became afraid that maybe 2020 we could have problems. Is it because the two sets of the same ruling class, you know, want power desperately. Of course. And because
they'll do anything.
They'll do anything to have power. They want power desperately, and therefore they have the means to. They have the resources, you know. And in Ghana, you could see them people calling the vigilante, insulting them, and all other. But the issue is not those people, because most of those people that they recruit are unemployed,
of course,
and they fall a prey. So the problem is those who are recruiting them, is the politicians, it is the top people, the people who have the money. They are creating the havoc.
Okay, now I want us to slightly move aside. Women, I've always brought this in. Nkuruma mentioned women on a few occasions. The Ghanaian political structure has few women in its centers and the center rights, and most of them. The women are there, but they're seen, but they're not heard, and they're not taking any, in the Pan African movement, we hardly hear of any woman. Are they there at all? Their names are not mentioned. We're fearing male. I mean, I know Africa is a male-dominated society. I can agree. But this is the 21st century, and the role of women has to come in most of this. Now, as a Pan Africanist, that's why I'm asking you, if there are women out there who the system is cutting off, that would be totally unfair. Because one famous woman I knew was the South African singer Miriam Makeba. She did quite a lot, and she was probably the greatest Pan African artist I've ever known. She could perform, she could do songs that So the thing is, the question is, how do you view the role of women in Pan Africanism?
The women are more than half of the population. In any African country, and therefore has a very important role to play. But the major issue that faces women is the economy. Remember that most of the economy in every African country is the men that control the wealth. I'm not saying there are no women who are very rich, fantastically rich, or they've had inherited wealth. There are women like that, but they are in general, they are in the minority. And also remember that women bring out children. They are the dominant, they look after husbands, they look after children and others. So when it comes to meetings, like for example, I said we're trying to build a Pan-African movement in Ghana and all others. And it is not easy getting the women to come. Simply because they have to look for their children, the children needs, the children in school. Whereas the man just gets up, most of women just get up and just
puts his trousers on and
move. Just go to the beer bar and then drink our beer and feel very comfortable. So they are immense. So any movement, any Pan-African movement that is being built must recognize that women have to play a very central role. And on an average, women are more exploited in Africa than the average man.
I do understand that, but again, that brings us to the question of maybe they are not being pushed forward by the movement itself. The movement is not pushing women forward. The movement again is the people within the
former
Liberian president. She explained this when it was asked in America. whether there will be more women following her into political leadership. And she simply said, no, it's got to be the men. You need to ask the man that. I can't answer a question because I'm a woman. I do understand, but at the end of the day, I managed my way through in a different role, and eventually I became president of Liberia. But whether another woman is going to push her way through, it remains to be seen, but everything rests with the men, and she was pointing her fingers. It was a very interesting one.
Exactly.
That's where it comes back to the men.
Yeah, the men. I was watching a WhatsApp message, or was it a Facebook message by a Nigerian politician who got up in the parliament and talked about women are important, but he said that don't give power to these women. They are controlled. They will control us. They are more than half in my constituency. You could believe this is a man. You wonder whether somebody can get up in parliament and say that about. So again, it's we the men. You know, and again, it's just like when you talk about class. You know, we the men feel that we have to control women. Women have to be our property, and therefore we wouldn't allow them to go out, to go to meetings. When the husband comes and the woman is not there, say, I was going to a meeting, it's a big issue. Why did you go to why did you go out? Why didn't you tell me? But any political movement that wants to make an impact must have women at the core. And it's Nkuruma's movement was basically built by women, the market women. Even Nkuruma letter of resignation, a woman bent her back down for Nkuruma to sign his resignation from the United Gold Coast Convention. And women played a very, very important role. And Nkuruma ensured that because women were not as educated as men, ensured that positions were allocated specific for women, and the women were trained. You know, luckily in Africa, I mean, there is now people are beginning to appreciate, and with the support of NGOs and others, girls are going to school, and when you go to some universities, you even have a lot of women and others. Again, it also depends upon the woman. The woman must come out, you know, very important to undertake struggles, and not only see it as a feminist struggle, it's women versus men, but see it as a struggle of exploited people, ordinary people, working class. The women are part and parcel of the struggle for a better Africa. In that way, we can move forward.
How about the question of culture, the cultures? The cultures have a massive role to play, because from West Africa to East Africa and further down below, and you know, all the African tribes, you're going to find that the role of a woman is already defined within the tribal settings. So it becomes, with the modern culture and the way it is, it becomes difficult for some men to see that they give promotion to the women. So.
Particularly on the land issue, in most African countries, you know, like where I come from, women don't inherit, though they may have a patch of land is to farm, but they don't own land. It's the males that own land. But again, it is culture is dynamic. Culture needs change, and the various progressive organizations or movement must put to the fore. You don't carry on or support a culture that degrades women. Do you get it? So culture is not static. It's dynamic. The fact that years ago a woman was supposed to do this doesn't mean that today it should happen.
I mean, it's like I say, it's the 21st century. Changes have occurred.
And we men have to recognize that. But women must also recognize that they are part and parcel of the society, and that they should demand. You not only demand, but struggle together with men for a better change.
Well, we could say that the battle for equality was already won. It has been already won, and the winners are the women, because very little change takes place anywhere without their knowledge. Although there are certain things that really requires them to know more than the men in order to succeed in the areas where they go, because it's something that we found there. And we have to struggle and fight to achieve it, and that is why I keep asking all this question. The youth, the women, these are people who are marginalized in a way when it comes to bigger decision making. People just wake up in the morning and they say, "Oh, this is what is happening. There's nothing I can do about it. You know. So with your words, I think there's a lot of encouragement into that. Yeah. Now we're coming towards the end of the program, and
but let me say something about the youth.
Okay.
You see, the youth is extremely important because me, like this, I'm in my 60s.
Yeah.
How long do I have to live?
We don't
have many years to live. So, and Africa is a useful country.
Yeah.
So the future belongs to them.
Yeah.
And they have to rise up.
Yeah.
If they want we, the old men, to create havoc for them, and they inherit a country that is environmental destroyed, it will be to their disadvantage.
Yeah.
So it's extremely important that the youth recognize their calling and mobilize and organize.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to take the country.
I think the call is already there. The call is there. Yeah, the call is there. It's just.
And the work that you are doing is very important, you know.
How is it being pushed forward? What I wanted to find out is something that I believe a lot of Pan Africanists haven't really gone deep into, and that is the question of getting the numbers higher. Now, the population of Ghana is probably going up to 40 million people.
No, we're 29 million.
It's 29.
Yeah,
okay.
We're getting to 30 million.
Yeah, well, the statistics of United Nations are the ones that I try to follow.
Okay, maybe they projected it to 2050.
Well, there's that projection. Like I said, it's it's projected to that actually. 2050 it's going to be about 40 million. Yeah. Now the question is, Malaysia, China, USA, and even Britain, they are planning already for that is why they put those projections there. If the birth rate is low, this is how much it's going to be. This is how low. If the birth rate is high, this is what is going to happen. Now, the African and the Ghanaians especially, the chances are that Nigeria and Ghana were put almost in similar way, where Nigeria will go up to nearly 400 million people. Ghana will reach this. And they are saying, look, but when we ask them, what have you planned for the, 2050? We get very little. We said, no, those who will be there will plan for that.
Those are the problems.
Those are the problems.
Yeah, the problems we are facing, because the planning is about how do you control your schools, your colleges, your roads, and others.
Exactly.
But if you don't control your resources, if your resources are basically controlled by foreign interests, and you have little to control, like in my village. Like a village near my village, in the Upper East region, a Chinese company came in. They are mining a gold mine there, and nobody knows how much they are taking out. A country should be able to sit down with this Chinese and say, you're taking this mine gold out. How much are you taking out? Look, we will take 50. And you can take 50. But you allow the company to come dig your this thing, create environmental disaster, and take their this thing. No, business people want maximum. And then there was a WhatsApp message, I don't know whether you saw it, where there was a meeting with Africans and with Chinese, and all the Chinese had a paper right there. All the Africans were sitting down.
I remember. I remember. I've seen it.
We have to plan ahead.
I've seen it. The question was the African, the Pan Africanism with the population. My question has always worried me. It's organizations like the Pan African movement that will create a voice that the leaders will listen to, because you people have to say now, hey, Ghana 2050. This is how it is. Trust me, what's going on? We need to know, is there some money in store for the next 40 million people who are going to live in Ghana?
Or are we going to eat ourselves?
I think this is where I'm saying, look, people like you, I don't know whether you have it in mind to try and not only to question the government, but to come in and say, hey, this is what, can this be done? Is that kind of thing existing?
There is in their limited. Even the present government and the previous government, both the NDC, have talked about, is it 20-year development plans and others. There are discussions, but most of them, again, is more of rhetorics.
Okay.
The discussions should be much more concrete. And I'd like to emphasize again that the discussion should be about how we can take control of our natural resources. I'm not saying that we are against foreign interests, but how much we can get from those foreign companies. Not for an MP or politician, like for example, our Vodafone, Telecom was given, and MPs were given $10,000 each, and they signed a contract 1 year to our backbone to Vodafone. This is anti people's policies. They shouldn't be encouraged.
Education, I think, will play a major role in future, because if you're educating us, and I think the media has to play another bigger role in exposing what's happening, because without exposure over issues like this, nothing is going to happen. To me, that's how I believe.
Yeah, exactly. There's the progressive media and the reactionary media. Like, for example, you give me an opportunity. There are some media that will never even give you that opportunity. I know. So it depends upon who controls the media. And remember that it's the money people, like in Ghana, the radio stations are owned by millionaires who have their sympathies with the two parties. So they tend to...
So the other man was right to have the 25-year, you know, the Bishop Daniel William was right to have a 25-year development plan without political parties.
You can with due respect to him, and his idea, with due respect to him, you know, and everybody has his idea, but you know, the call is, you know, you can't have it without people competing, with our political program, without clear about what those 25 years should do. You can't have it without reorienting the people. You can't have it without people with integrity. You could elect the same person 5 years, and you just get up and put his brothers and sisters and share the contracts between them, and that is it. After 5 years, he goes away. Even in that 5 years, they will be so much in a hurry to loot that you probably come back to Catch 22 situation.
Okay, it's going to be hard to find a solution to Africa. It's going to be hard.
It's step by step.
I pray something happens, and well, I pray something happens, and it happens, and we find a solution to this.
Exactly.
I just want to thank you so much for coming to the program, and I've enjoyed it. I hope our viewers have enjoyed it as well, and we found it very resourceful. Before we go, I just want to remind everybody that this program is sponsored by Omega TV, and Omega TV does quite a lot. It's not just what you see here, but it's other things that are in the pipe. You need to go on our website anyway to see most of the details. But among things which are made by Omega, flyers, posters, folder leaflets, brochures, booklets, bookmarks, banners, stationaries, business cards, letterheads, envelopes, sticker notes, folders, notepads, greeting cards, invitations, compliments cards, postcards, tickets, calendars, and what have you. Anything within that role of printing, just get in touch with Omega House. The telephone number is 0208-520-3359. Anyone out there, any part of the world, if you get that, you have a chance. We can get in touch with you. All you need to do, visit us on our website, or visit us, on our website, and look at what we can do. Just want to say thank you once again.
Thank you too, and thanks to your viewers.
For coming to the program, and I hope we'll be together next week for the next edition of Africa Speaks. May God bless you all.